れ心臓の音
Hey everyone, welcome to a quick, red-green lore deck profile. So we're going to just get right into what the leader does. So, kind of an obvious thing at this point though, because he has been around since the very beginning. But essentially, if you have 5 characters on the board, return one of those characters to the owner's hand, then play up to another character with a cost of 5 or less from your hand that is a different colour than the returned character. So being just a red and green leader, you can essentially just kind of swap out red and green characters that are 5 cost and below. So with that in mind, we're going to have a deck built around the 5 cost and below. So we're basically just going to have a bunch of smaller ones that you kind of want to spam the board with, such as the searchers and the 1-drop blockers and stuff that red and green have. And then you'll kind of start swapping those out for any kind of 5 drops or even 4, 3, and 2 drops that might be really good for the deck. So without further ado, we'll move on from leader to the first character. Okay, so the first ones we'll talk about is the searchers for the deck. So with Nami, basically just on play, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, and then just search any Straw Hat Crew type member or character except from Nami herself. So this allows us to grab Sanji, Zoro, Luffy, a lot of cards, a lot of good Straw Hat cards that are 5 cost and below for the deck. Really helps the consistency. It's been a staple since. It's not really going to change. It's pretty self-explanatory at this point. Just a very good card. Okay, so another searcher for the deck, we've got Jewelry Bonnie. Just like the Nami, except for Supernovas, though there are a lot more cards with Supernovas in this deck than there are Straw Hats, making her a really good searcher for this deck. She's also able to just search herself, which is really cool in addition. This does, however, cost 1 Don, and it will rest her, so you want to kind of make sure that you can do this when you're able to swap her out or keep her safe, as she is a really hard card to defend, what with only being at 1k power. But other than that, fantastic card for the deck, and especially with what the deck wants to do. Again, it's just you don't really want to play her in that early game if you can help it, because you want to make sure that you can play her, search what you need to search, and then kind of swap her out immediately with something even better in your hand, right? Or even another searcher, because this deck has so much search, keeping it very consistent. So yeah, Jewelry Bonnie, very, very good for the deck. Okay, last but certainly not least of our searcher cards, we have 4 of Curly Dedan. So this is another, it's a 2-drop searcher this time, but you essentially look the top 5 cards of your deck for a 1-drop red character card. So not only can this search for Namis, making search even more consistent, this can also search out the chopper blockers, because you definitely want to play a lot of lower cost cards in the deck, because the whole point is to kind of play those lower costs as fast as you can, and then swap out to your bigger stuff very, very early and very consistently, which becomes really a struggle for most decks to deal with. Of course, apart from the ones Black Blue Sakazuki. But anyway, and more into that in a bit. So yeah, this card's just really good, helps keep consistency with the deck. You could probably do with running this at lower counts if you want to. I've definitely run this at 3 before, but considering what the deck just kind of has in it, 4 feels fine. 4's okay. No complaints here. So okay, I think next we're going to get into the other 1-drops as we go along. So the other ones that will definitely stay as staples in the deck, we have the chopper blockers, as mentioned. Very self-explanatory card, just literally a 1-drop blocker. You want to spam it on the board. You can even do stuff where you can swap it out if you need to, and then you can play it later. Again, there's so much you can do with the lore's swapping ability, which just makes this deck very versatile in what it wants to do. Again, can be searched by Nami. Can't be searched by the Jewelry Bonnie, but that's completely fine. But it can be searched by the Curly Dedan. So yeah, just great card. So okay, and we have the Beige for green. So this can be searched by Jewelry Bonnie. Obviously, it can't be searched by the Nami or the Kelly Dedan, sadly. But that's fine. Again, it's another one-drop blocker. Just really good for what the deck wants to do. Very helpful for defensives, like late game especially. Much like the Chopper, just more of this means really good. So. Okay, and another amazing staple for just red in general, but one drop Otama. 2k counter, and on play, give up to your opponent's characters, or one of them, minus 2k power during this turn. You're not really playing this a lot for the on play. You can do it sometimes in this deck, it's completely fine. But you kind of only really want to do it if you're either trying to get rid of something, or like absolutely has to go, or you have a way of swapping it back into your hand. Because it's more valuable as a 2k than it is on the field. But again, it is a one drop, so it does complete that purpose of like you can play it to kind of start like revving up the leader, right? If it's like the last one drop you get to play before you're online, that's fine, that's completely okay, just so long as it's one of the cards you swap out. But of course, it can contest with, say, other cards on the field like Jewelry Bonnie, or even like maybe Law Blockers you've had the chance to play. So do be careful with what is going on the field in terms of what you want to swap out and what you'd rather keep in hand. But yeah, other than that, completely fine card, staple, absolutely. Okay, another one. So these are the one-drop Nico Robbins from OP05. Really good card. Again, Straw Hat can be searched by Nami, can even be searched by Curly Dedan as well. It's a really good card addition for the deck because it allows Nico Robin to kind of deal with these very low power but really good and consistent cards in like certain decks. So like Black Blue Sakazuki, it can like get rid of Rebecca blockers, which is really good. And then in yellow, it can also get rid of any Brûlés that kind of just appear out of nowhere, right? Because there's definitely been a lot of times where like you're swinging for game and like Brûlé comes out of life and it's like, oh man, I need to get over that. You've got this very quick one drop that you can either swap in or play, and then it's just going to KO it, and it allows you to just carry on your aggressiveness, right? So yeah, very decent card. I think I'd only keep it at 2 though. I don't think I'd ever put it up. Like, whilst those things are nice to get rid of, 9 times out of 10, the law can kind of be fine by itself to, like, it doesn't need to remove as much, right? But it does kind of also help where, like, if you've got stuff that's kind of sitting, like, at a higher, like, powers a bit, like 2k or 3k or, like, something like that, you have the Otamas that you could play, and then you could play this. So you could kind of make it work in that sense, but you're not doing that a lot of the time. It's very niche case scenarios. But still a very good card for the deck, absolutely. Okay, so another one, we have the 2-drop Sanjis. These have always been great. These are another 2k, but in addition to this, you can also have them take your life to kind of gain 2k power and then give 2 rested Dom to this character, making them like an immediate 7k just then and there. So this kind of helps with those slow burner games where like Sakazuki or like a Rebecca might kind of might stall you out, or like any leaders really. They might stall you out. They know that you want cards from your life. You're gonna absolutely take as many as you can just to have like a big like hand of one drop, spam them all, do your swaps, and just be really hard to take down after that fact. So this kind of helps you get cards from your life to your hand without like having them interact with you. And again, you can also, like, because of how versatile this deck is with the whole swapping out thing, if you've done, like, your swing with this, you've took your life to see some cards in hand, you are online, you can swap it back into your hand, and then you've got a 2k in your hand if you need it. We are, like, running a bit more of a 2k heavy deck, per se. We're kind of teching in some stuff that we're just trying and having a bit of fun with. Because, you know, it feels like that's something that, like, the Law deck could like use or like would be very useful to it, is another like way to defend itself, because once you kind of get past its blocker defense, it doesn't have a whole lot to protect itself with, because 9 times out of 10 it is wanting to take its life cards to see what it can get, what it can kind of do with. But yeah, Sanji really helps with those big stall games, and again 7k is a nice sweet spot to swing it leaders at, or most cards at, so very good card for the deck. Alright, next up we have Brook. So this is the on-play, give 2 rested Dom to leader or one of your characters. So this one's very helpful when you just want to try and get like some character swings or some leader swings at decent like sweet spots for power, for swinging. Again, another Straw Hat, so it can be searched out. Another 2k, which is really good. So even if you're not playing it, it's a good defensive card for you to use. And because you can swap it out, doing that whole on play, getting to use up some of that like rested like Don just gives it like overall value a lot of the time. So again, a very good card for the deck. I kind of feel like sometimes I could bump this down to like 2 or 3. It's finding out what you'd do it for most of the time. Trying to like find out good numbers that you'd be happy with. But I do like this. I think this is a very valuable card, a very overall, very good card for the deck. So okay. We are going to get right into the free drops now, I guess. So we have the Rush Sorrow. Pretty self-explanatory. It's a free drop 5k that can swing the moment it's out. It is both a supernova and a straw hat, so it can be searched by anything bar the Curly Dadan. I can't say more than enough. It's just a staple card for the deck. This deck loves seeing this. Because a free drop that's very like something that's easier to play but can also swap out, meet the requirements for like the swapping ability. So you can kind of like, I've definitely done this a few times where like I've had this be the last thing I played on the field, and then I can just swap this out for like a law blocker, play the law blocker, bounce something back to my hand, play this again. It's gonna rush again. It's fantastic a lot of the time. So yeah, very good card for the deck. Alright, and I think this will be the last of the free drops. Very interesting card to be including in this one, but this is the promo Monkey D. Luffy. That is a 2k counter, whilst also being a Supernovas and Straw Hat character. I like this card for this deck a lot. I really do. I can't say enough. Because having the 2 Don on it means that when no matter what, this is going to swing for 7k because it gets the 2k from the Don, and then just my turn this gains another 2k. So sadly, when defending it, it's not as great, but just getting in that 7k swing is completely fine. It's a 2k, so if you do any kind of if you do manage to get some swings with it, you can then bounce it back to the hand. It's a nice 2k in hand. Again, it can be searched. You can swap it in and out. It's just. It feels great for the deck. It feels good. There's been a lot of times where I've played this, especially into yellow, right? And it's felt good to play. It's felt alright. I'm glad this card's on the field right now, you know what I mean? Or I'm glad it's in the hand. It's like a nice 2k defense. Very 2k heavy in comparison to a lot of other law decks, which can be seen as good or bad because you kind of want to make sure you're making room for essentials, especially some cards coming up. But in tandem with both the Brook and another card we'll be discussing in a moment, I think this is a very nice card to have. So yeah, I like this card a lot. It's very fun. Okay, next up we'll be talking about the only, one of the definite, absolute, de facto staples of the deck, the Law Blocker. So if you don't know, on play, you can just return one of your characters to the owner's hand, and then play one character for the cost of 3 or less from your hand. So again, I talked about this with the Zorro. You played this card, it's now a nice 6k blocker on the field for you. And then you bounce something back to the hand, like say a Jewelry Bonnie, or maybe an Otama you've played, or anything. Or that's anything at all, even another 5-drop if you wanted to. And you can just play like a 3-drop or low. So you can play Searchers, you can play Blockers, you can play a Rush Zorro, you can play the Luffy, you can even play the Brook if you want to give Rested Don to your leader or something. Very, very, very good card for the deck. Absolute must, absolute need. It's why the deck is even a thing, really. You'd never replace this. You'd never go down on this. So yeah, an absolute must-have. Just fantastic for the deck. So, all right. Next up, we have 2 of the 5-drop Rush Monkey D. Luffy that can go past blockers. So yeah, this is another really good card for the deck. There's been times where I've been tempted to kind of go up to 3 or 4 on this. I think I might go up to 3 on it because it's apparently deemed well in the Sakazuki matchup, but we kind of see that matchup as a lost cause a lot of the time anyway because of how that deck functions, especially going into this one because this one is just easy for it to deal with, right? But yeah, this card's really good. Again, another Supernova Straw Hat, so it can be searched by Jewelry Bonnie and Nami, so it's great. When it's got the 2 Don when attacking, you cannot activate blockers against the Val, so it's a nice card to finish off with. It's a nice surprise card too, because again, you can swap this out. You don't have to pay its full cost. So you're just paying 2 Don, you're swapping out a Jewelry Bonnie or a blocker, and you're going for suddenly this 6 to 8k swing for game, right? So yeah, very good card for the deck. Like absolute. Like I don't think I'd ever go down on it, but I'd certainly consider going up on it. So okay, this one might be a bit of a like hit or miss. We have just 2 of the restand law. It's a good card. It's good. It's again the whole supernova thing. You're searching it. It's another 5-drop, so it's hitting that clarification as well. It gets to restand your other supernova or high pyros cards, so you could like restand B. Like, well, I'd say beige, but if you ever did block with beige, it'd probably be gone. You could restand Bonnie for searching. You can restand your other law. You can restand this law. This one can target itself, I believe. So. Yeah, it's a very good card. You can also target the other Supernova Straw Hat cards, so like the Luffy and the Zoro. So it synergizes very well with the deck. However, when looking at a bunch of the 5-drops and considering some of the tech I wanted to try, this was not deemed as like the highest necessity. The restand is great because being able to swing with your blocker and then restand it and either swing again or just kind of stay there is great. Aggressive is what the deck needs. But people were kind of like bumping this down to 3 anyway sometimes, and I was kind of like, you know what? I've been playing it at 2 for a bit, and I'm kind of seeing it enough at 2. Because especially if you can keep the Bonnies alive, you can cycle through your deck so quickly. So it's not too much of an issue. I've been fine with it at 2. I've definitely sometimes been like, maybe I should put this up at 3. So you could probably go down on like some of the Brooks, like I mentioned earlier, for like either some of this or even some of the Luffy. So maybe like 2 Brooks and then put in a Luffy, put in a restand law. This might be really good. But yeah, no, this is a good card still. This is still a card that I would deem a staple in this deck. It's still a very useful card. It still makes a lot of the deck what it is. It's just that I feel like I can sometimes see it enough it too, but it's give or take depending on, you know, your preferred playstyle. So, all right, and this is, in my opinion, my sleeper hit. I don't think it's as perfect for this deck as it is for previous stuff I've had fun with this card in. But I do still like this card. So we've got Chaka, who for 1 Don, you can give 2 rested Don to your leader or one of your other characters. And it's a 5-drop. It's a 5-drop red. So the only issue is it cannot be searched at all. You kind of have to hope that you draw into it, which sucks. But it's understandable, right? Because it's Alabaster. But if you do manage to get to play this out, either using lore ability you play it, then the amount of like rested Don value you have is kind of crazy because like you can still give this to like the Luffy or even give this to something like the Sanji, or even your leader or even your 6k attackers that you want to make just a bit stronger, or even the other Luffy, the 5-drop rush one. And immediately you're fulfilling a lot of those requirements, and this card itself is like, you know, it's going to have that 1 Don on it, so it's going to be like that 7k swing. It might be something that works more in conjunction with the rested Don Nami, so if you ran some of those in this, because you want 1-drops, and they're also Straw Hat, right? Or well, rather, they can be searched by Curly to Dan. So that would synergize a bit better with this, but this is why I'm only running this at 2. When I do see it, it becomes a bit tricky to play, I won't lie to you. But it is like fun to try and like get this out, and like when you do, like the aggression definitely switches on. It's very like, you know, how do you deal with a lot of this? Because suddenly some cards that shouldn't be swinging for as big as they are, just are, right? Again, those 7k/9k sweet spots are just really like hard to deal with sometimes. But it definitely is sometimes, it feels like either a win more card or a perfect world card, right? Where like in a perfect world you get to play this, you get to do what you want to do with it. But I do like the card. I think it's very useful. I think it definitely has like its niche case like scenarios where you're like, this is great. And I've just had a blast trying this in a bunch of like different decks I've been making for OP5 format. I think it's a card that will only stand to get better as time goes on. But yeah, this is kind of the last card for this, pretty much. I'd probably only keep these at 2. I don't think I'd ever go up on them. I'd probably, you know, really realistically, you probably would remove them for other stuff, but they're fun. I like them. They're enjoyable. Alright, and I'd say that is pretty much it for the lore video. So, kind of really, this isn't by all means like the best end-all be-all like lore deck, definitely not. There's still so many ways you can build this deck, and Supernovas are getting some stuff in the future, so there's definitely going to be like a lot of like contenders for how you might even build this, or maybe a potentially better Supernova deck in the future, right? But yeah, no, this one still has like the heart and soul of what it wants to do. You know, you play like your smaller drops, and then you kind of just like swap out to your big stuff. You swing big. You've got the blocker like all over the place to kind of keep you safe. You've got like more 2Ks in this as well to kind of help defend yourself, which sometimes has really helped me. There's definitely been some games where like I barely lived because I was able to just kind of 2K out of some really big swings that like Law just otherwise can't. Which is saying something about like not having Radical Beam in it, because Radical Beam is good for the deck, but it's not an event heavy deck. It's not something you even really want to see events in a lot of the time, because that could a lot of the time the way you think about it with this deck is that Rad Beam could be like a 1-drop that you could actually play to like put your leader's ability online, right? Because that's kind of what this is about. You want this to kind of pop and like come online, and so you can start swapping stuff out and just switch on aggressive plays. But no, other than that, that's pretty much been it for the Red-Green Law. So hopefully there'll be some, I've got some stuff planned. It's just going to take some time, but I'll get more into that another time. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for more stuff. Peace.